I'm gonna apologize ahead of time for the noise. It's an extremely hot day today.
Says tomorrow's gonna be hotter.
Hotter?
Like yesterday.
Yesterday.
And I have to have the AC on in the shack. Anywho, let's get into this. So my wife is pretty abusive. She physically breaks more computers than anybody else I know. And she's probably gonna get really mad at me for saying that, but it's the truth.
No, it's not.
It's probably really hard to see, but let me see if I can zoom in here. That's a little better. Let's zoom in a little more. Okay, so this little port, you can tell there's a little disformed piece of plastic right on the bottom, and the center part is pushed down. And what that tells me is it was plugged in and somebody stepped on it. And I bet that was my wife. She doesn't look where she's walking, and she just, anyway. It doesn't work. Luckily, it's a very cheap fix. You can buy new ports. Let me zoom back out. Alright, you can buy new ports online for under 10 bucks, about 5 bucks usually. And the computer manufacturer, they know that somebody's going to abuse it. This kind of looks like they use some hot melt as a strain relief. Anyway, so they make it where this part is replaced and it's not soldered directly on the motherboard, and this just plugs in. And that should work. And if this power supply isn't broken, which I'm hoping it's not, the green light is on, but you can tell the cat's chewed on this quite a bit. Not my wife, the cat. And I'm a little worried because there's a little prong in there that's pretty far back. It looks like it's not bent, and it looks like it's meant to be that short. If so, it's a very clean break. Anywho, let's plug this sucker in and see if we're getting an actual voltage through here. And most laptops are about 19 volts. So let's see what we get. Now I'm probing this beforehand because if this is broken, I'll just order another one. I know for sure that the plug itself is broken in the computer, so it's not going to be a waste of time replacing that. But it's easier to do this. There we go. 19.556 volts. So this does in fact work, but it's better to test it now while it's out. That way you don't rack your brain trying to think, oh well, did I install this right? Is the port good? Did something fry in the laptop, which is kind of unlikely. And I'm sure that this prong is pretty shallow just for situations like this. I bet my wife's not the first person to ever step on a laptop. But let's take this thing apart and try to get it fixed. So laptops are harder to get into nowadays than they used to be. It looks like my wife's actually missing a few screws. There's a joke there, but I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to get in trouble.
But don't you think it's time you finally faced your greatest fear?
No.
Anywho, should probably get my magnet tray out. Alright. So let's take these screws out. Oh jeez.
What the hell is all this?
So I can tell by looking at this, my wife's got this wet a few times. There's quite a bit of rust on these screws, and there's no rust on these screws, so you can tell she must have spilt something. And anyway, luckily I don't think it got inside the laptop, but I wish she was more gentle with things. But what are you gonna do? She needs a laptop, and I don't want her borrowing mine anymore. And I'm sure you can guess why. And finding the part is actually very easy. You just type in the model of your computer, and it's easier to find if you don't wait for the battery to die like my wife did. But luckily, she left the sticker that tells you what the computer is on the computer. I couldn't really find any useful information on here, except I bet if I typed in the service tag and stuff, it would tell me exactly what computer I had. Hold on a minute, somebody's calling me. My mom just called me and said she wants me to fix the gate. So, I guess that's what I'm going to be doing later today. Unfortunately, it's hot. Man, these are some interesting screws. Well, I'm going to try prying this up, and hopefully these ones are the kind of screws that don't come out. But let's see. Now, when opening a laptop, it's important not to force anything. I don't remember if I've ever opened this laptop. I probably have. But anyway, you just don't force anything. Take your time. Keep track of your screws. And if you take your time, everything will turn out okay. And don't force anything. Just, get your nails in there. If you have a spudger or whatever the little prying tools are called, go ahead, use that. But I find just carefully work your way around the laptop will free things up. The beginning's always the worst. And who knows? You might have to get in through the top.
Ooh, I broke a nail!
Just try not to bend your nails backwards, because that doesn't feel very nice. Wow, yeah, that really didn't feel very nice. There we go. Might actually be getting somewhere now. There we go. They're about this, don't force anything. You know how many professional technicians I've had come over with a new laptop that had some sort of defect, and they come over and they just force everything to try to get the job done as fast as possible. And I once had a tech come over, force everything open, actually bend my back plate, and it was a very expensive laptop. I was really upset about it. He bent my back plate. He broke half the components in the laptop, and then filled out his service tag, and said, "Here you go." And I read it, and it said, "Customer was very happy with the service, and service was completed, blah blah blah."
And you're a professional pilot.
And anyway, that one was actually pretty difficult to dispute because it was an ordered laptop, and that was the last time I ordered a laptop. And it took, I think it took like 6 months for them to finally agree to just send me a new laptop. And even when they sent me the new laptop, they just peeled off the old stickers and then put the new sticker on, and put Scotch tape to hold the stickers on. And they said, "Oh, the stickers don't really mean anything." I was like, "Well, that's my proof of purchase for Windows and all that stuff." Anyway, that just popped right off. Anywho, it was my proof of purchase for Windows and everything, and that they were barely sticking on there. And let's see for a second. Yeah, it looks like these screws do not come out. Oh, there's a piece of cardboard's in there. Anywho, that was a nightmare. I guess I shouldn't say what company that was. Anywho, this is a little dirty. I think I'm probably going to take this out and clean that while I'm in here. But let's locate that power port. Anywho, I have a bad experience with techs. They come in, they abuse your equipment, and then they don't want to be accountable for it.
You need to take responsibility for your life.
Okay, so here's the little beat up port right here, and unfortunately it looks like Amazon had an incorrect website description, because it looks like this will not fit this. But let's take this off and take a closer look at it. My dad, he had a guy come over, same company. He came over, he took the whole laptop apart, he broke every single data ribbon connection, because he'd pull them out at a weird angle. I guess we can be proper and unplug this, but he broke them all, and he said, "Well, Dell's not going to send you a new one.
You're working with a professional here!
So we just returned the laptop. Luckily, we got it from a local store, so it wasn't a big deal. But still, it's just, I really hate it when techs say they know what they're doing, and they just destroy your products. Anyway, guess I'll stop ranting about that. Come on. Okay. Again, never force anything. Okay, let's look at this. So that's clearly broken. And this, I mean, it could fit. I mean, since I have it, actually, you know what? It's going to be close, but let me zoom in here. it's going to be very close, but if you line up these little tabs right here, and you can see where this is the old one, this is the new one. It has a little curve here to clear the case. Now, this one, it's a little short, and it'll be real close, but it might actually fit. If it fits, great. I'm not going to return it, because I really don't want to have to return anything right now with this whole pandemic thing, with the lockdown and all that stuff. Anyway, so hopefully this all fits perfectly, but we'll find out. Okay, so I didn't zoom back out, so let me just tell you real quick what I ended up doing. So you probably saw I unscrewed this. I took the port out. Here's the old port. Put the new port in. This is kind of long. I'm going to have to tuck that somewhere, which I wish companies wouldn't lie about it being fully compatible, but we'll find out when it's all done. Anywho, I took this out. This is the fan for the CPU. And I carefully, this is the ribbon for the display. I didn't want to unplug that because sometimes they don't get seated right, and I just don't want to deal with it. So anyway, this is pretty dusty, so I'm going to take it out in the shop and blow it off and then come back. Okay, so I'm back. I blew it off. It's not perfect, but I got pretty much all the junk out of there. And you know, well, that's interesting. Oh, you know, they might have done that on purpose for some sort of expansion. Anyway, one of these blades, there's a ring around these blades, and it keeps the fins spaced evenly, and one of them is actually broken.
You had one, Joe. Just the one?
But they might have done that on purpose for expansion or whatnot. Anywho, we'll know if it's broken as soon as we turn it on. So hopefully it's not. You know, I didn't even notice until I took this thing apart. It's got a spot for another SSD, and I think I did have this apart at one point because I'm known for taking these things oh, gross. Oh geez, you guys see this? That has my wife written all over it. We got some crud on the battery for the internal clock on this computer, which explains also the corroded screws. Oh man, that's disgusting. Ugh. Anywho, let's put this thing back together before I get too disgusted. Anywho, I've pretty much given up on laptops for my personal use. For school, I need a laptop sometimes, but for my home use, I always use desktops because they're easier to fix, and they're easier to get parts, and you're not bound by, well, if you build it yourself, these days you buy a desktop computer and they make sure with a custom motherboard and a custom power supply, they make sure that you have to get their stuff and have to get their service, and I really hate that. I like doing things myself, especially because I care more about my product than they do, and that's not an exaggeration. Let's see if I can tuck this cord under this board right here. It's got a little piece of plastic I'd feel better if that was like Capcom or something, but they, you can tell what brand this is. DELL used to be a really good brand, and at one point, DELL was putting out some serious garbage.
A sphincter says what?
And I'm sure everyone has their own opinions, but when you fix computers, you kind of know which ones are more garbage than the others. Because if you're... HPs too. I've had more HPs light on fire than any other computer. They don't really do thermal very well, just like Apple. Apple sometimes does fake thermal, but anyway. Clean some of that crud out. I know I'm going to be coming back to that someday. I just know it. My wife's going to tell me, she's going to say, Will, my laptop, every time I turn it on, it says, I don't know what time it is. And I'm going to say, well, I know exactly what you did, but I didn't want to fix it that day because I have a feeling I just don't want to deal with that today. Anywho, let's put this back on. Let's see if when I plug this in, and you know, this, it looks like this will work. It's closed nice and flush, and it plugs in. And I think that means it's charging. Let's see if it turns on now. Looks like the screen's good. There's hair all over it. That goes with the territory of somebody else's laptop. Recovery. Let's just restart the PC. See if that does it. Now, the only reason I'm doing this right now is because if there's a problem, it's easier if I didn't click this case all the way in and put the screws in to fix something. Take this away for a second.
Because I have a double secret super password.
Okay. And I know this says William Bowling School. This is my wife's computer. She just never changed the... everything seems like it's working. She just never changed the startup because this used to be my computer, but she broke her last computer, and she broke it so bad that I said, here's my old laptop, which is still a really good laptop. Anywho, she, gosh, she's so abusive. It's hilarious. She swears she's not, but she really is. But yeah, she just never customized it. And when I gave it to her, it didn't have all these scratches on it either. Alright. So, looks like we're good. Now the rule of thumb when you're doing something like this is you start every screw, you go backwards first till you feel that click, and then you very slightly hone the screw, or even leave it a little loose in case things shift a little bit. Computers are more precise on their molding than they used to be, so it's not that big of a deal nowadays. But in the older days, you would do this if you just started tightening them as you go. When you get to the last few screws, they don't fit, and that's because they had quite a bit of wiggle room, and things with wiggle room sometimes they just don't work out. Think of it, I've had quite a few problems with computer manufacturers in the past, saying, for instance, let's say I just bought a new computer and it's missing a screw. What they'll tell you, or me, is, oh, you were very abusive because screws just don't fall out. And you know, that's not true, because I've had computers where, alright, so we're missing a screw here and we're missing a screw here. Anyway, I've had computers where they just didn't have screws in them to begin with. Even on the inside, they'd be missing screws, and if they wiggled loose, they'd still be in here somewhere, but they're just not there. But typically what you'll do is you just say, hey, I just bought this computer, can you just send me the screws? They'll usually say, no, we're going to have to charge you some ridiculous amount. And then you just tell them, well, I'm just going to return the laptop then, or desktop. And usually they'll say, oh no, just we'll send you the screws, or let's talk, I'm going to talk to my supervisor. That's a popular one. Anywho, I'm going to see if I can find 2 screws. That feels right too. That's just all these 2 screws will really do is keep this disk drive from popping out, but I bet it does just a little bit extra right in there. So there you have it. It's charging. It wasn't before. This is still beat up, but it still works. And that was a nice cheap $5 fix. And this is a INSPIRON 15 5000 series, and like I said, so you can find that on the sticker that comes with it. And since this was mine, I kind of kept it on there, and I guess my wife just kept it on there just because. But I always keep the stickers on my laptop because I don't like looking for the information. But the sticker on the front will tell you, but if that's gone, in your computer's properties, it'll say exactly what it is in the computer's properties. But if in this situation where you cannot turn the computer on, you should be able to look up the service tag, even if the warranty is up. And what that'll actually tell you is what exactly the computer is, and then you can find parts from there. I recommend not getting them directly from the website, and the only reason I say that is because they're going to charge you more. I didn't look it up, but I bet something like this would probably cost 10-15 bucks directly through Dell, and it was only about 10 bucks. No, it was about 5 bucks, not 10 bucks. It was about 5 bucks online. So, I mean, it wasn't the exact part, but it did the job. Let's one more time. Let's see. That's not right. Anywho, it's done.